But the radius, you're right. The radius of Oak Tree, or the radius of turn 12, now that the Oak Tree is no longer inside the track, is the tightest turning radius of a Cat D6 or whatever it was.
Green flag.
Welcome to the Blind Apex Podcast, where amateur club racers tune in to get faster.
This episode is brought to you by Deechworks Fuel Systems. Visit deechworks.com for all your fuel system needs. On this episode, we're going to do another track talk, specifically about one of the two main tracks I go to, Virginia International Raceway, and we're talking full course, okay? Not the multitude of other sections that they cut it up into. But before we get started, I want to thank all the listeners who share this podcast, and I want to thank all the past guests for their contributions. Today, the day of recording this episode, we reached 25,000 downloads and over 100,000 total listens. Wow. Speaking of past guests, joining me to talk about heaven on earth, driving coach, vintage racer, with a fresh couple of wins under his belt, maybe 4 or 5 at this point. I don't know how many he's getting up to. In a new to him car. I mean, aren't all these vintage cars new to you, right? Or anybody? King of VIR, Mr. Peter Krause, welcome back to the podcast, sir.
Well, man, thank you so much. What a great intro. You know how much I enjoy this. I love talking to you, principally because you're somebody who is continually moving forward, continually getting better, sharing the information and all of the things that you do to help other people go forward. And I think that's what we all want. And certainly I've been very blessed, with the idea of being able to make a living out of a passion that I've had all my life, not only racing and sports cars and driving, but also teaching and helping people again do the best they can on the racetrack. And first and foremost is always the study of the track, the topography, the elevation gain, the loss, all those things we feel through the bottom of the seat and the steering wheel and our bodies moving around inside the car. And as my friend Ross Bentley would say, sensory input sessions. And we're going to talk a lot about that, especially when we talk about VIR.
Oh, yeah. There's tons of elevation change up and down here at not here. You're not even at VIR today. But at VIR, it's a elevation heavy track. So
it really is. And I'm fortunate enough, it takes me 1 hour door to door to drive from my home across the street from Duke University in Durham, North Carolina. I've had a commercial facility up at VIR since 2008. I was hired as a project consultant to help rebuild the track in 1998, in September of 1998. I almost lost my shop business, my prep shop business, because I was spending so much time up at the track in the 1998 to 2003 time frame. But thankfully, that the track really, the reopening of the track after 25 years of being closed reinvigorated my prep shop business. And we bought more tractor trailers and took more people up there and did all kinds of things. So it was good.
Well, before we get into that history, let's talk about your vintage racing and what you've been up to recently, because I think people need to hear that story.
Well, vintage racing for me is really fun because, well, I have licenses for NASA and have track records at NASA wins, SCCA for almost 40 years, many other organizations. My primary focus is vintage and historic because I really enjoy the cars. The cars are different. They span decades. The people that own them are real super enthusiasts about their particular cars. They are proud of them. They shine them up. They make them look as good as they can, but they also spend a lot of money to make them go as quickly as they can, and they want to go as quickly as they can. I think vintage racing has a little bit of a bad rap in terms of people saying, well, they're just out for a parade. They're just riding around. But I tell you, racing is racing. And the fast guys up front are racing as hard as they can without hitting each other. And do accidents happen? Do cars get damaged? Yes. I mean, I have seen a $20 million Ferrari get, $80,000 worth of body damage. But I asked that owner of that $20 million Ferrari, why are you racing this thing? And he said, because I can't do $20 million worth of damage to it. I can always fix it. And, some of the most spectacular racing, the Monterey Rolex Motorsports Reunion out at Laguna Seca for 2 weekends every August. Lime Rock Vintage Festival on Labor Day, which has been going on for 42 years. I've been going for 36 years on and off. And I've had poles up there, and I've finished on the podium a couple of times. And I've won a Jeroboam of Moet Chandon champagne and a beautiful silver cup for Spirit. Well, I wanted to win the race. And so after 36 years of going to this event on and off, I not only won the race, I won 4 races and won the Autodromo Chronograph Spirit Award. So I got a beautiful watch with the Lime Rock track on the dial. And I just had the best weekend one can ever have, debuting a brand new car that I bought out of the back of Facebook Marketplace and just worked nonstop myself on the car for 3 months. It was cathartic. It was relaxing. I wasn't stressed at all, but I had no idea how the car would do. And I went up there and went out for the test day Tuesday afternoon, dragged my lady up there. She used to race up there as well. And within 3 laps, I said, I've got something here. And I was really just laughing in my helmet and had the best weekend. It was just spectacular. But vintage racing is a great place. It's a super place for older cars to come out. Many of the organizations, especially in the mid-Atlantic area and the Northeast and the Southeast, are now accepting cars as late as 1989, 1990. We're seeing a lot of NA Miatas come in. We're seeing a lot of first and second gen CRX SIs. We're seeing A1, A2 Golfs come in. So we're seeing a lot of these older cars come in SCCA improved touring trim, which allows, basically, the old PT classes and things like that. I think it's great, and it's definitely worth a look for anybody who's listening to this podcast who's got a car like that, because it's just another place to race. It's great.
Yeah, and even if you mothballed one and it's sitting in the back of the shed or, God forbid, in the backyard somewhere, dust it off, clean it up, and it has a home now, So
That's right. That's right. People get bummed out because they say, oh, my car's not competitive anymore. And realistically, what you want is you just, to me, the most exciting thing about racing is just having a shot. I don't need or want to be guaranteed a win or a podium. Matter of fact, I would prefer not to, because otherwise there's something wrong with the system. But if I have a shot, if I just have the ability to, if I do my job really, really well, and I prep the car well, and the car's working well, and I'm working well, then I have a shot, a chance to stand on the podium, or, heaven forbid, stand on top of it. That's all anybody can really ask. And there's another opportunity for a lot of these older cars in vintage racing.
For sure. And, I almost feel bad because, we talked before the podcast, we hit record, but, there's a lot of folks that are holding on to their older chassis, and maybe they want to run full seasons and things like that, but the parts are getting harder and harder. to source, and so they're doing limited runs. This sort of changes the perspective. I think you have a different avenue. And I don't know what the rules are, but maybe they're a little looser on only OEM parts and things like that. So you might be able to make some custom stuff.
Yeah.
So
Definitely.
Well, since we've been talking about history, let's talk about the history of Virginia International Raceway a little bit. Do you want me to start or should you start? I'm sure you know more history. Okay. All right.
No, I mean, I can amplify, but you're a great student of the whole sport. So I'm anxious to hear what you have to say about this.
Okay. Well, the opening season was 1957. I was not a twinkle in anybody's eye around that time, but Carroll Shelby won the feature race on the inaugural weekend in a Maserati 450S. I'm going to guess that qualifies as a vintage car these days. One thing I learned from your virtual track walk with Ross Bentley was that it was created with a bulldozer. I don't know who was driving it, but they had too many beers at lunch when they did the back straightaway because it's not straight.
That is definitely true. Definitely.
But we'll get to that.
But the radius, you're right. The radius of Oak Tree, or the radius of turn 12, now that the Oak Tree is no longer inside the track, is the tightest turning radius of a Cat D6 or whatever it was.
Yeah, whatever bulldozer was made in 1957. So I to me, that's interesting because some of the names of the turns are reminiscent of what it used to be. It used to be a farm, right? Hog pen. There literally was a hog pen in that turn, Oak Tree. RIP to the tree, right? That tree was there when it reopened in March of 2000. It was there for, I must have been back at the track at 2000, 2001. That's when I started back into going to the track, or into going to the track in the first place. So I must have been right as it reopened. But it reopened in 2000 as a country club model. I don't know how that model's technically evolved because they do things like now that we have trackside villas you can buy for $1 million and things like that. But if you're a member, and I know there's still members because I know there's still member only VIR days, you get track time and your member days, and there's other benefits. I know it's for it being closed did it close in the 60s?
So it actually closed in October of 1974.
Okay.
So it closed 50 years ago this month.
Oh, wow. Okay. And it reopened 24 years ago. So it was closed 25, 26 years. But it's still a premier track because it's hosted SCCA NASA championships. It hosted AMA Superbike championships on the North Course anyway, from like 2000 to 2010. It made, in my heyday of riding motorcycles, it made AMA Superbike racing at the championship itself accessible to me, this lowly kid in the DC metro area. So it was big for me. NASCAR tests there. IMSA cars are there at the random. If you get to pull in early, if you get to stay late, if you stay late, whatever it is, somebody's always sneaking in there with something. It's a sought after place to be. So, but I mean, that's sort of the history that I know.
Well, it's really amazing. I mean, I won't go on and on, but this was something that just might not have been as well as have been. Mm-hmm. By that, I mean the fact that the track is not actually, it is physically owned by the family that has been there for more than 100 years. Mm-hmm. The Foote family. And the Foote family now has many descendants. And it took a commercial real estate developer from New York, a guy named Harvey Siegel, and his, right-hand get it done person, Connie Nyholm, to come down and negotiate with 35 or 40 different descendants of the Foote family to agree to allow them to reopen this facility. And many times before, it had been mooted that local businessmen would help get the thing back together, but it never came to fruition. And I'll never forget the first day in June of 1998 when Harvey Siegel invited me over to his trailer and a couple other people over to his trailer in Mid-Ohio at a race that we were all at. And he had this easel with this green velvet, and he whipped open the green velvet, and there is a planning map of the original VIR. And I stopped breathing at that time because I had never been there. I moved to North Carolina, I guess about 5 years after the track closed. And I was very heavily involved in the Ferrari Club because that's where most of my customers, my repair shop customers, took their cars to go track them. And those people were really tied into it, had raced at VIR before it closed, and wanted nothing more than to throw money at it and try to reopen it, and they were never able to do it. And so when Siegel and Connie negotiated with the family, signed a 50-year lease, and basically spent $35 million the first several years to reopen the facility, it was a very, very, very exciting thing. And it's still an exciting thing. And it's a huge, huge place. Together with the industrial park where I have my commercial facility, that I'm able to buy my commercial facility, about 178 acres adjacent to the track, combined with the 1,135 acres of leased land, it's a 1,300 acre facility. And so there's a ton of stuff going on. Shooting ranges, NGO training, all kinds of stuff going on all the time up there. Yep.
It's right off the Dan River. Really good. Though they made you'll be hard pressed to get your car into the Dan River unless it rained a whole lot, but it's hard to get down there these days. But
it's true. It's true. But it's getting better. It's getting better now. It's I think in the 2007, 2008 time frame when we had our last sort of economic contraction, that was what precipitated Grand Am and ALMS combining to make what is now IMSA. It really, professional racing took a real hit, and the development that was happening rapidly through the early 2000s at VIR stopped.
Right.
And it really took a while. It took 8 or 10 years to get going again. And now there is a new investor, a new co-owner with Connie Nyholm, who is an executive at, what is it? The folks that make Fortnite. It's a gaming company in Cary, North Carolina. I should know it right off the top of my head. But anyway, Mark is putting a lot of money into it, and Connie's. We're just so excited, people who are there, to see the growth and the building that's going on now.
Yeah, it's expanding. It needed some infrastructure updates. I know at a point there was some concerns with the industrial sized wells that they had. Some of them had gone dry, and they were building new ones or had built new ones. And so that's always a concern, mostly from the health department side. They want to make sure there's enough adequate water for the entire facility and things like that. So,
but the best part about it is after 25 years of lobbying the state and the municipalities adjacent to the track in Southside Virginia, Connie was able to come to an agreement with the state and a number of other folks to spend $50 million to tie VIR into Halifax County's water and sewer.
Oh, wow.
So that happened in the last 2 years. It was announced last year, I think. The headquarters of Skip Barber Racing has relocated from Long Island to VIR on site. So things are really happening, and the future of VIR is much more secure than it was even just a couple of years ago.
That's good to hear. It's a great place to be. I will tell you, as a racer, sometimes I feel like I get nickel and dimed there. But to hear the backstory and how essentially the money they're having to collect now has been essentially spent to help ensure that it stays as a racetrack for the duration of the lease is important to know. So I appreciate that backstory.
I'm with you. I mean, I'm a racer. I race as often as I can at VIR with as many different groups as I can. I do track days. I'm VIR club member number 5. The club is doing quite well. They've got about 18 days. It's actually a very inexpensive club when you compare it to Road Atlanta Drivers Club and Lime Rock Drivers Club and a lot of these other clubs. It's even less expensive than Summit. But it is, it's bringing new people into the sport. That's what a lot of the club stuff is about, is to be less intimidating, to bring new people into this. It's not quite nose up in the air elite, as a lot of people would like to think. It's more about bringing enthusiasts together in a social environment with lots and lots of track time. And a couple of extra things thrown in, like special parking at the IMSA events and stuff like that. But I agree with you. I think that the costs at many tracks, including VIR and maybe even especially at VIR, have outstripped inflation and become onerous for a lot of people. And I think the track is aware of that. I don't know what they're going to be able to do to fix it, but they definitely are aware of it. They hear us screaming. At least they hear me screaming and a bunch of other people. But the issue is that it's still a great option, and it is it's a world-class facility. You got people coming from all over the world to drive this track, which amazes me still. I'm shocked at how many people that I run into in the paddock at professional events who say, man, I've never been here. And it's fantastic. I want to come back. It's the first thing out of their mouth. But it's a supreme challenge. It is.
I'm shocked that I hear that. I hear it also, but I'm like, I'm here 4 or 5 times a year. What are you doing? So I'm just spoiled. You're more spoiled than I am, though. But you're there all the time, and you have a facility just off the primary track area. So that's a dream, right? I mean,
I count my blessings every day. I mean, it is amazing. I bought this commercial facility thinking I was going to do a lot of work up there.
Mm-hmm.
And this was, I filled it with simulators. I have what at that time was plasmas on the wall, big LCD screens to review data and video with people. And I ended up doing almost no work at VIR from the time I opened the facility in 2008 to about 2018.
Mm-hmm.
And I was traveling 200 days a year to and from tracks throughout North America and in Europe because it was easier to bring me to people as a professional coach with the technology and the equipment that I use to help drivers. It was easier for them to bring me to them than it was for them to come to VIR.
Right.
But before the pandemic, after 10 years of spending my life on planes and driving and hotels where I didn't know which way the bathroom was when I got out of bed, I stopped and I said, I'm not traveling anymore. If people want to work with me, they're going to have to come to VIR. And I went into semi-retirement. This was after Ross and I began our series of virtual track walks. And I said, I'm just going to go to the coast and I'm going to go sailing in my little high performance day sailor and have a great time and work harder than I ever thought possible to go slower than I ever thought possible. But, and I enjoyed that for a long time, but then I got bored. My wife got bored. The phone started ringing. People started saying, hey, I want to work with you at VIR. I think it was the SRO race in 2021 or 2022 when I first got called by a team saying, hey, come back. And I've been working up there 4 to 8 days a month ever since. Sold the sailboat, bought a race car, sold the house down there, bought another car. so I'm back in it, back hard in it. And the definition for success to me as a professional coach, and making my living at my passion for the last 40 years, something rarely people get a chance to do, is a great thing, and something that I never take for granted.
Yeah. It's a dream. Maybe one day the podcast will have a office space down there, or maybe up here at Summit Point, because I'm not that far away. So we'll see. I'd love to be full-time trackside, and whatever full-time means, just to be able to sustain myself with a passion would be amazing. So, but
you can do it. I know you can.
So we talked a little bit. You talked about going to all around the world and to these different racetracks that you've never been to, and going, where is the bathroom? And I think one big bonus for VIR is they have a plethora of bathrooms, in my opinion. So
good ones
too. Yeah. So in the main paddock, not the North Paddock. North Paddock has decent bathrooms and only one building. So if you need to find anything, if your event's so big you're in the North Paddock, there's one building. That's where everything you're going to have is, right there. So go ahead.
The South Paddock is
South Paddock.
Not North Paddock is
North is main. Sorry, I don't know why I get that confused forever. But yes, absolutely, he's right. South Paddock is the one with one building. That's where everything is. North Paddock is the main paddock, and that one's got a plethora of buildings and 2 major bathrooms. I say major because they have showers, right? So that's the main one is in the big building with TMI, and is it still called Pagoda Grill?
So actually, it is the Pagoda Grill. They have nice bathrooms in there with showers. They had the Pro Shop, the TMI Pro Shop. Then in the timing tower, they've got more bathrooms,
right?
With
but no
the
showers.
Emergency services people, but no showers. But then they have showers at the false grid garage on the outside, and good bathrooms inside. And then they have a new building, which is down next to the pond, which used to be the engine dyno area. And that's called, something Turn 9 or something, Station 9. Anyway, there are nice bathrooms in there, and it's good.
Yeah, so there's a plethora of bathrooms. There's garages. I can't remember how many there are. Probably a dozen garages or more, with places to stay above. 18.
Yep. And they've moved the drivers' meetings from the timing tower now to a pit lane level garage underneath, pit lane level rooms underneath the garages. So there are also bathrooms underneath there, which are really good. But that's where the drivers' meetings are generally held, classrooms for DE events, stuff like that. So instead of being down at pit out, now it's at the pit in area of the racetrack at VIR.
Right. So when you need to find that stuff, just look for pit in, and it'll be in that area where everybody else is walking. But also above the garages, there's rooms that you can stay in. There's a whole hotel essentially outside, just outside the track. Literally, you cross a bridge to get into the main paddock area. So it's just on the other side of the bridge. Usually plenty of room, except for at huge events like an IMSA event or Hyperfest or things like that. There's usually room there. What else?
And then you can rent villas. You can rent the villas as well.
Yep.
They have an upstairs and a downstairs and viewing patios and decks and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, I've been in a villa once, and I think it was 10 years ago when I was there, and it was amazing. So they're building new ones further up the S's. That's where the villas are. We'll talk about going up the S's and where to look, and don't look at the villas. That's a hint. Like, they're there. Don't look that way. Ignore them. Um, but it is a world-class facility. There's North Course, there's South Course, there's Patriot, there's all sorts of courses they run, but we're going to go over full course, not Grand, which is even bigger, but just full course. I've never driven Grand. I kind of want to, but I already have a hard enough time with all the corners on full course. So,
well, Grand is pretty interesting. Grand was using a portion of Patriot, or most of Patriot. Basically, you go up the back straight, you turn off to the right before the braking zone at the end of the back straight, and navigate the entire infield section of VIR, and then come back at the very top of Roller Coaster, which leads down to the pit straight. And a couple years ago, well, quite a few years ago, more than a dozen years ago, Car and Driver magazine decided to make a competition for cars in different price ranges. And basically, the Car and Driver Challenge is done every year. Just got finished for this year up there. And they just wail on a bunch of really cool cars on that big ass track, 4.1 miles, bigger than Road America, bigger than Elkhart Lake. And it is really something. But most people like the full course, and I love the full course. I mean, I've got 17,000 laps there, and I'm still learning stuff. It's amazing.
Wow. I think another thing that sets VIR apart from a lot of other tracks, a lot of other bucket list historic tracks, maybe like, let's say Laguna Seca is the closest town to VIR. Milton, North Carolina is very pro VIR, in my opinion. So this might be a little leading.
It really is.
But what's your favorite place to eat around VIR?
Well, there's a couple of places. I mean, Milton actually has flowered in the last 4 or 5 years. So what does that mean? I mean, we're talking about a town of, I don't know, maybe 650 people. But the point is, it's got 5 good restaurants. They've got a new beer garden, which is killer, that has a bunch of food trucks coming in. I mean, it is really, really good. There's always Millie's, which is the pizza joint in town. That place has been around since the very beginning, since before VIR was reopened. And then there's the garage across the tire store right across the street, which is actually a nice little cafe deli. And then there is actually some fine dining. Milton, there's a restaurant in the same building as Millie's on the main drag that is open generally Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, that serves pretty good food. And I can't help but also mention the fact that Danville, which is another 15, 20 minutes away, has exploded with some incredible restaurants and boutique hotels downtown, near the Riverside. And a lot of this is driven by the new Harrah's Casino, which is being built right now. But I prefer to go to Danville. I like Cotton. I love, there's just a bunch of good restaurants there. And like I said, boutique hotels for people who are really Tony. They can go a little bit further away. South Boston, which is 25 minutes the other way, is a world-class resort run by Marriott, the Berry Hill Resort. So there's plenty of stuff all the way from the Sleep Inn to Berry Hill Resort and some of these really nice boutique
and the casino
hotels
and everything. Yeah.
That's right.
And the other bonus is that there's lots of places to get or attempt to get spare parts. You want to O'Reilly's? They got them. You want to Advanced Auto Parts? They got them. You want an AutoZone, they got them too, and they got everybody in between. It feels like. So on a race weekend or a track day, you could make dozens of phone calls. I know I've had to do it.
Yep.
To source parts, but it's there. Unlike some places where it's hours away to get something, it's usually within an hour to go get something. So
That's right. Worst case, I mean, people can, you're less than an hour and 15 minutes from Raleigh, Durham, which has every major car manufacturing dealership, including Tesla, on site. And then, of course, there's Greensboro, which is only about an hour away. Mm-hmm. So that if you're driving something very exotic, you can still get pieces for those cars, relatively close by. One final accommodation that seems to be very popular with a lot of people is not 10 minutes away from the track is Hyco Lake, which is in Person County, just the next county over. But this is a relatively large lake that supplies water for a big power generation station about 15 minutes from the track. And it's got some beautiful homes, and there are always a ton of Airbnbs and things like that available there. So a lot of teams, and especially for people in long distance endurance races, that is the daddy right there. I mean, you definitely need to cook your own meals and stuff like that. But it's terrific. It's really good. And
there's even a grill and restaurant on site at VIR, not just the pagoda, because the pagoda closes 2 or 3 o'clock sometime in the afternoon. So you usually have to source your own dinner. But if you don't feel like leaving the track, there's another, I can't remember what it's called now, but
it's pretty cool. It's Connie's Pub is up top, and I don't know I can't remember what the restaurant is called, but it is in the antebellum mansion, the mansion that was built in 1841, on the top of Spectator Hill, which is on the right as you come into the track past the administration building. And it's a beautiful place. They have been very sensitive to trying to get a decent menu in there, and they do serve pretty good food and have lots and lots of good beverages to imbibe, decent wine list. It's amazing. It's really good.
Yeah, I remember many evenings there, and then literally walking all the way back to over the garages and going to sleep. So it's a good place to be, especially if it's open. So are you ready to do a turn-by-turn talk of full course?
Always ready.
Always ready. So I believe, I guess we can start on the front straightaway. And I believe we need to start there because there's a kink in the front straightaway. I believe the kink was on purpose, but
I think you're right. I think the kink was on purpose. But, the kink is different for different folks. In smaller, medium bore displacement cars, it's really a non-issue. It's just a bend in the road. But if you're in a big, heavy, powerful car like, a big Corvette or a Viper or something that is capable of going 140, 150, 160 miles an hour on the straights, the kink turns into a real corner. Mm-hmm. And so starting at the kink, which is right next to the timing tower, and just before pit exit, you really want to be able to set the car up from the left to the right, bend the car gently to the right, and be against the yellow and green FIA curbing, which is at the innermost point of the kink, better known as turn 18, on the track, because it is a real turn, and the road goes up and down all around VIR, and in particular, it goes down after the apex of the kink. So if you're wide of the kink, in a big, heavy front-engine fast car, or even rear-engine car with a light front end, it's possible for the car to begin to wash out to the left. So you really need to pay attention and come close or apex the kink in a big, heavy, fast car, because the car will carry you, if you're going fast enough, out to the left edge of the road.
Yeah, I don't drive a car fast enough for that. But it's there. And it's when we share the track with bigger, heavier cars, where I take it for granted, you can tell they aren't, right? So coming out of hog pen onto the front straightaway, we'll talk about hog pen at the end, but we come out of hog pen and you're going up the hill and, they have the horsepower and here they come. But where I sort of go, okay, they pass me and I meander over, they're really like trying to come back to the left in front of me, and then come across. So they're working pretty hard, and it's because at speed, I think my data is somewhere around 120-ish when I'm in the kink. So if you add 15 miles an hour in a bigger car, keep accelerating, it's probably going to carry a lot more momentum and feel a lot different. So,
well, that's what's really fun about, hog pen, the last corner leading onto the pit straight, which leads into this kink, is a very, very fast corner. And so the exit is very, very quick. And it is not uncommon, and I would encourage people to look at their data, because their terminal velocity on the front straight, if they're doing hog pen right, should be within a few miles an hour of what they're getting in the back straight.
Many
cars are identical. Many cars are identical. I mean, many cars, my Sports 2000 prototype was, about tapped out at 137, 138 miles an hour, but I get it both at the dip at the end of the back straight and at the end and at the point of brake application on the front straight. And that is unusual to have two VMAXs on the same track. And that's really, really fun. But getting out of the kink and the car beginning to move across the width of the road from the right to the left, the goal is going to be always to keep the left side of the car parallel with the left side of the road in the left half of the road. Mm-hmm. I try to run as close as I can to the left-hand side. The initial brake application for most cars will be in a position on track that is going downhill slightly. Mm-hmm. So if you are applying the brakes in any reasonable car going 120 miles an hour or better, you're going to have a little bit of instability because the nose is down and the back is up. And you have to know that the road will level out and begin to climb in the last portion of the braking zone going into turn one, which is a more than 180-degree hairpin to the right. And it's a really slow corner. I tell people all the time, in order to go fast at VIR, you need to know where to go slow. And turn one is one of those places that people overcook all the time. They don't control their speed. They don't keep weight on the nose, so they end up finishing their braking early, releasing the brake, having the nose come up, turning the wheel, and then saying, well, I'm not on the brakes anymore. I guess I should go back to gas, which causes more weight to come off the nose of the car and exacerbates any sort of understeer as they try to get to the apex inside. So rarely are people too slow going into the apex. Most people are overcooking it and going too quick, or they're done, they're braking too soon and back to throttle too soon. But you really want to wait. You have braking markers on the left-hand side starting at number 6. They are, standard 100-yard increments, I guess. I think it's more than 100 feet. It might be 100 feet. So even if it is, it's 600, 500, 400, 300, 200, 100, and then an arrow.
Yep.
Now, when the track was repaved first in 2013, then in 2016, they actually enlarged or widened the track on the outside of the entry of turn one and the exit of turn one. So that's not important for turn-in, but it is important to have for the exit. And the curbing, the original white concrete curbing that is all around the edges of the track, was what Boris said. Gene Wilkins, who was the track scheduler and a state championship autocrosser at the time, and I decided where the curbs ought to be. And the first curb in turn one starts on the inside, and then several car lengths after it begins, a additional yellow and green FIA curbing, which gets progressively rougher the more you take, is presented in the middle to the end of that inside curbing. And your goal really is not to get to the inside curbing before the FIA curb behind the original curb starts. Everybody is in such a hurry to get to the inside that they end up screwing their exit because the track falls away immediately after the apex, which is about 2/3 of the way around the corner. And the goal is, especially in a larger car, to get the car straight and pointed as soon as you can to apply maximum throttle as soon as you can. And so the turn in is between the 1 mark and the arrow. I often use the arrow. I don't really I advise people not to cross the width of the road before the inside curbing begins. And then not to get to the inside curbing until after the FIA curbing starts. And the most important thing in turn one that you can remember is do not leave the inside curbing until the very end of the inside curbing. That is the number one hint that I can give people, is don't do it, because the road falls away. It goes down. You develop an understeer. You're trying to finish the turn. You're trying to apply power, and the track is doing everything it can to say, screw you. So the goal is going to be, I see I'm that there. Knowing, that knowing nod. But that's okay. You want it to. You want to govern your exit radius from turn one with your right foot, not with the steering. Too many drivers unwind the wheel prematurely. And what they end up doing is they end up having to get out of the throttle to keep the car on the road. But the goal would be to accelerate smoothly and progressively to wide open throttle. Where people spin in turn one is not at the entry, but at the exit.
Yep.
And the reason why they spin is because they're at part throttle for a long time, and then they whack it. And so if they just kept their foot moving progressively down, they would be able to propel themselves out and progressively widen the exit radius of the car to come back to the left of center at the exit of turn one, across from the second set of curbings on the right. The road actually comes back to meet you, and it begins to rise, which gives you grip. So if you can just tough it out and you're on the right geometry, you'll be in good shape. Then you get to breathe for 3 seconds?
Not even.
Before the next
the hint you gave about sticking with that inside curb minimizes your exposure to the track going off, to the camber falling off. So the longer you hold it, the tighter you stay right there, and the easier you get into the throttle and walk it out slow, minimizes your effect in getting to the off camber part of turn one, which is where everybody has problems. If you're out there, it's miserable.
Well, there's a reason why there's no grass that grows on the outside of the exit of that corner.
Yeah.
But I guess going up to turn two, I mean, it's a pretty well of a straight shot. I mean, a lot of people come back over. What they do is they complete their arc, their right-hand arc through turn one, in such a way that the right side is parallel with the right side of the road in the short straight after turn one. Mm-hmm. And they're on the right half of the road. And people have a lot of trouble in this area because they don't know what to do next. So their foot comes off inadvertently, comes off of the throttle pedal. And they're not sure where to go. They're not sure where to brake. And I ask people, instead of trying to fixate on a beginning of braking point, instead try to accelerate to a particular point. And almost every car even cars that are very, very fast, can accelerate fully until the driver's left shoulder is even with the beginning of the turn 2, which is a left-hand sweeper, the beginning of the turn 2 curbing.
Okay.
And cars like yours, cars like mine, we can accelerate fully to at least the midpoint of that curbing on the left, because then we have a couple hundred feet to get rid of only about 25 or 30 miles an hour. We're not trying to get rid of a lot of speed. But where you would want to trail the brakes into turn 1 and other slow corners at VIR, 3 more, you would not want to trail brake into turn 3.
Nope.
Turn 3 is a flat left-hand sweeper with a bumpy entry, more open than 90 degrees. That's why it is a sweeper. You really want to get your braking done a little bit earlier than you think you ought to, turn a little bit earlier than you think you ought to, and make a big, beautiful, broad arc through there.
And don't be afraid of the power.
Don't be afraid of the power. That's right. Because actually the car is most stable under power.
Correct.
Through there. And I think a lot of people, what they do is they have a crisis in confidence. So they turn in and they don't go to power, and the car doesn't like it. It doesn't like the indecision of the driver. But turn 3 is a very interesting corner to me because I just need to get the braking done, get the car turned in, and then really just roll on the power. It's turn 3 is awesome. I mean,
I love it.
It's great.
It's also known as NASCAR bend. If somebody says NASCAR bend, that's also turn 3 at VIR.
Well, it's so funny that you should talk about that, because NASCAR bend is a wonderful place that a lot of really competent drivers got into trouble. They hadn't run into a decreasing radius corner, and this was Richard Petty, Curtis Turner, a bunch of these legendary stock car drivers tried out VIR one time. It's in the early 60s, and they kept falling off the road into a little stream that went underneath the track between turn 3 and turn 4. And so that's why they do call it NASCAR bend, and it's really a lot of fun. It's cool.
Yeah, if when you get turn 3 right, because you're like, am I going to make this? Am I going to make this? And then you pop out of the other side and you're like, holy smokes, how am I going to stop for 4?
That's right. That's right. And that, it's wonderful that you say that, because that's precisely what you want to think. Am I going to make it? And turn 4A, the track's corners were renamed a couple of years ago by the current general manager, Kerrigan Smith. And I think Kerrigan did a good job, but I have a tough time with the same number of corners going in 2 different directions. It's something that is confusing, but it's just something we have to live with. So turn 4A is a left-hand 90-degree corner, followed by a somewhat more open than 90-degree right-hand corner, which is 4B. And I think 4A is one of the toughest corners on the track. It is got a minimum speed for a majority of drivers between 48 and 50 miles an hour, which is one of the slowest corners on the track. But then you have to pause for a moment and turn the wheel very quickly and decisively back to the right through turn 4B. And if you ride a bike like I do, once the track closes the middle of December, you can get on certain areas of the track, and without pedaling or doing anything, the bike will begin to roll. And this is one of those places, 4B is one of these places where you could just don't even pedal, and the bike just starts rolling downhill. It's amazing. Turn 4A is not that big a deal. It's very important that you take a late apex in 4A, because it sets you up for the best entry into the snake, which is the turns 4B, 5, turn 6 section.
So,
and
I have a note for 4A that if you're a car with off of the curbing, you are in no man's land, and the car may not turn because the road is washing away, and there's like a gradient, like a texture to that asphalt out there that my car personally, both the cars that I've owned now, do not like it out there. So,
well, it's interesting you should say that. I mean, yes, it is a matter of topographical grip, but more than that, it's a crown in the road between 4A and 4B. So the road is actually higher in the center, quite substantially, between the entry of 4A and the entry of 4B. And what happens is people, if they early apex 4A, they end up going up and over the crest in the middle of the road, and they just cannot make the car turn to the right. But you have hit the nail on the head with this whole 4A, 4B. Some people say, you alluded to it before we went recording by saying, you know, I mean, you alluded to it. I just had a brain fart, but the idea that
we don't
there was not throwaway corners.
Right. Yep.
That was the point, was there's no such thing as a throwaway corner, but there are some corners that you de-emphasize to get an advantage. And that's what you were talking about. And I agree 100% with you.
I would not
for sure
take 4A in a racing context. I would not take 4A as something I'm very defensive of 4A, because if you get over on the wrong side of the entry into 4B, in my car, which is flat basically all the way up the S's, even the right at the top, and we'll get there. But I scrub for South Bend, which this podcast is named after, and you basically reset at Oak Tree. So if you compromise, if you give yourself up in 4A, you're not making it up until you get out of Oak Tree. And that's a long way away. It's 6 corners, but there's a lot of wide open throttle and if you're giving up a mile an hour or 2 or more in 4A and compromising 4B with another couple miles an hour, you're hosed for all intensive purposes as a straightaway. You and Ross talk about breaking up VIR into basically 3 big straightaways. And for most cars, it starts at 4A. So
for sure,
you want to be very careful with 4A. That's my advice.
You've hit the nail on the head for sure. Just going on to 4B. The whole idea is just one big parabola, one big arc to the right through from the left half of the road exiting 4A to the late apex of 4B on the right, and then a big open arc that moves across the width of the road to the left and then back over to the most aggressive curbing apex most people take, which is turn 5. And the goal would be to get the car as straight as you can, as soon as you can, so that you can just fly out of that section. But that is the snake. Used to be called the flat S's. Now it's called the snake. And it leads onto the second longest straightaway of the entire track. So your whole discussion about how important 4A is, I would say that is the number one place where most drivers can gain the most is 4A and through the snake. But going under the drive over bridge, setting up to bend the car to the left, to get ready to turn right to go up the hill is super, super important. I love the fact that, you named the podcast over one of the most challenging corners on the racetrack, which is turn 10, South Bend. And I'm sort of rushing through getting there and I shouldn't, because this is one of the most dangerous parts of the racetrack, and a spot where people really need to have their wits about them. And they need to begin to think this through. A guy named David Murray, who was a factory Porsche driver and factory Lotus driver for a long time, runs his own David Murray Track Day experience. He used to say to us, all of us, that the uphill S's were just 2 right turns. And I have found that thinking of it that way has helped a lot of drivers that I've worked with get over the idea of where should I turn left? Where should I do this direction change? What should I do with this? What should I do with that? And in fact, Dave has been able to help us understand that it really is just 2 right-hand turns. Your goal is going to be to bend the car to the left very slowly, turn it back to the right very quickly, go over a jump, a crest at turn 8A, drive straight to just an apex point on the left-hand side and wrap the car around it, and then bend the car around to the right through the last right-hand turn before South Bend, turn 10.
Yeah, and I want to make a note. I want to make a note that everybody's like, I went flat through the S's. If you are going left, right, up the S's and you're flat, you're still at least half a second slower than someone that takes it as described, as you go left gently, quick hands to the right, point it as straight as you can, get over the crest. The right-hander at the top can be treacherous, but assuming you're still flat there, which is, if you're taking it correctly, it's going to be really hard to stay flat there unless your tires are optimal. But if you're doing it that way, it's way faster than you think it is. So it's a challenge for people to do. Everybody wants to go left, right, and that's not how it works. Not the fast way.
Yeah, that's right. They're not equidistant. The direction change is not equal between those direction changes, and you hit the nail right on the head. I know very few people that honestly are flat. I think I talk to more people who believe that they are flat than anything else going up the uphill S's at VIR. And it's not, I don't know why people debate it. It's hard. It's really hard.
Look at your data. And it will snitch on you.
Absolutely. And we don't want people to look at data as a tattletale. We want them to look at it as a tool. And you've been very effective in helping people understand that they don't need to be worried about it. They just need to use it. And it was explained to me that you could either go flat up the hill and slow down, or you could go easy up the hill and not slow down as much.
Right.
And it has been proven to me time and time again through the 18 terabytes of data and video that I have just for VIR. The issue is it is always better to go as quickly as you can for as long as you can and then make a speed adjustment. The only cars that I know that don't break are cars that are generally Spec Miata or less quick. And by that, I mean, so 105, 106 is the top number where those guys can slam a downshift. Doesn't take any time to do that. They can slam a downshift, get back on power, and just the steering scrub of turning left into 10 will drop the 4 or 5 miles an hour they need for 100 mile an hour apex speed. 100 miles an hour in a car with 205 tires and not a hugely developed suspension is pretty phenomenal. And I ask people at DEs all the time, I say, if you have a Corvette or a C7 or a C8 or, Porsche 911 or Cayman or something like that, I mean, there's no reason why 90 miles an hour should not be your target minimum speed at turn 10. Now, the problem with turn 10 is twofold. The apex curbing in turn 10 is not symmetrical with the radius of the corner. And what I mean by that is, it doesn't start, the beginning of the inside curbing doesn't start until way later than it should start if it were bisecting that corner. Meaning you want to pick up the inside curbing right away.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to put that left front wheel. You don't want to take any chances of upsetting the car, so you don't want to hit the curbing. But you do want to rub up against it at least for 4 to 6 car lengths. And if you're having any trouble staying on the track at the exit, then you need to stay with the inside curbing for a little longer. Now, turn 10, in terms of throttle, is the same thing as NASCAR. Get your speed adjustment done early so that you feel better about going back to power, because the car needs to be told what to do to go through turn 10 safely. If you have a crisis in confidence after you've turned in, or if you run wide and you make a big throttle adjustment, you're going for a ride.
Yes, you are.
And this is a place that has collected a lot of cars. In the beginning, when the track was reopened, the track was less than 50 feet off. The trees were less than 50 feet off the track. Drivers left at the exit of turn 10. And I will never forget the first Trans Am race in 2001. Paul Gentilozzi came over that crest in a Jaguar Trans Am car at 118 miles an hour. He put 2 wheels off on the right-hand side, and that car, they brought it back in a wheelbarrow.
Oh,
It was shocking. He was transported to the hospital. He was not hurt seriously, but that car wasn't racing again. So they did cut the bank of trees back first to 100 feet, then 150 feet. Now they've cut it back further to add more, villas and provide more room. But there's 55 acres of land drivers right at the exit of turn 10. And all people have to do is they need to remember, go for the open spot. So if it appears as though they're going to fall off the track and this left-hand sweeper at the top of the uphill S's, open the steering wheel and drive straight off, because there's 55 acres out there. Car will settle down. Yes, it'll be a bumpy ride, but you will not hit anything. The other thing that people don't realize at speed and without even pacing it off is the width of the road at the exit of turn 10 is 4 feet wider than the width of the road at turn-in for turn 10.
okay.
Now that's crazy, because there's very few tracks in the country that have differing widths at entry and exit. Now, in this particular left-hand sweeper, turn 10 South Bend, the extra width is justified center line of the track on the right side. So that means that the radius on the left side is the same, but the radius is actually increasing on the right-hand side to accommodate a wider width of road, paved road. And of course, the curbing that they put in there to try to help people has added to that. But there is actually additional pavement on the right half of the road at track out. So if you have, ideally you shouldn't be tracking out until the very end of the track out curbing on the right-hand side, most of the way down the hill. If you're tracking out earlier than that, then you're either not getting to the apex, turning too early, or you are leaving the inside apex curbing too soon at turn 10. So when you get out of that, you're driving down the hill into a big dip. The only elevation change that was changed from the original layout of VIR in 1957, yes, it is wider. It's 32 to 36 feet wide now. It was 24 to 27 feet wide then. But the new track is 100% centerline justified, the exact layout of the old track, except for the dip between turn 10 and turn 11, which is a fast sweeper, uphill, favorable camber, leading into the slowest corner on the track, Oak Tree, turn 12.
Mm-hmm.
And that dip in the bottom is raised 6 feet from the original elevation, because too many cars were bottoming out. Yeah. So it went way down.
Oh, wow.
And then up. And you can see actually remnants of how deep it used to be, because the uphill break for turn 11 is 2 different gradients. So the first portion of the brake zone is steeply uphill, and then it levels out in the middle of the braking zone, which has caught out many, 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 many people who are trying to push the braking zone into 11 and end up running out of road at the exit of the track between turn 11 and 12. And that is a really tough thing, because that's the closest place on the track anywhere where people come off the pavement to hit something.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the barriers are the closest to the edge of the track. Now, for your listeners who drive Road Atlanta has a section of 2 corners on the south end of the track. Same compass rows as VIR, called turn 6 and 7. And the goal at Road Atlanta turn 6 is to go as fast as you can through turn 6 to get the car slowed up for turn 7. Well, guess what? That's exactly the same thing that you want to do at VIR. Turn 11 and turn 12, the goal is to go as fast as you can through 11, so that you have to whoa the car up and have enough energy in the car so that you can afford to trail brake into Oak Tree. Keeping the weight on the nose, making the rotation, most of the rotation occur before you get to the apex of Oak Tree. If you do it right, it's one continuous loading to the left through turn 11 into turn 12. Yes, you have to tighten the wheel. Yes, you have to do stuff. But the point is that it's really one arc. And yes, the radius of the arc is different at different points. It's more open in the beginning through 11. It's tighter at 12.
How many times have you hit Oak Tree perfectly?
Oh, shit. Half a dozen out of tens of thousands of times.
So,
if that is a really disruptive curb, Oak Tree is, especially for a car like yours and a car like mine. It's very light. The car is super, super loaded to the left, and just a little doink on the inside curb. I have seen cars roll there.
Well,
I have definitely seen cars roll. That's the only place I've ever seen a car roll due to the curbing at VIR.
That's where everybody wants their 2-wheel photos, but that's not the fast way around the corner.
No, it isn't. And, it's funny. They, a couple years ago during the first repaving, they added excess asphalt on the outside at the exit of turn 3 and turn 12, Oak Tree. And they had FIA curbing already there. And instead of taking the FIA curbing out and laying asphalt, they just laid asphalt painted on the backside, on the outside of it. The reason they did that was because the grounds crews couldn't keep dirt from
you still can't
being furrowed and dug out. They still can't, right? But the issue is that if you're going to go over the exit there, and many bigger, heavier cars have to, it shouldn't be until the last several car lengths of that excess segment. And it should not be something that people are driving to. It's an area of the track that people should be carried to.
Okay.
So if you're not going fast enough in turn 3, or you're not going fast enough, or your geometry is not correct in Oak Tree, don't just open the steering wheel to drive over the excess asphalt. That's not fast.
You're just increasing
As a matter
distance.
of fact, it can be very dangerous. You're just increasing distance. You're also, especially Spec Miata and small, lightweight, less powerful cars, you run over that FAA curbing on the exit of these corners, it will slow you down, because it's like running into a bunch of pitter-patters, So that's something to think about. But Oak Tree is awesome, because if you do it right, it sets you up for a great passing opportunity with cars that are close to your performance at the end of the back straight. And even for cars that aren't close to your performance at the end of the back straight.
For sure.
Anyway, I've talked a whole bunch.
So I think if you as a driver think you have your eyes up where they need to be, the back straightaway at VIR will test that. Because if you don't open the wheel and look all the way to the skyline, you're not going to drive the straightest line to the top of the hill. And to me, that's the biggest thing with the back straightaway at VIR is I see people, they cheat over early and they don't realize that there's a right-hand bend up there that they follow the long way around. Some people hang too far to the left too long, and they're not cutting down the distance of travel by looking as far as you humanly possibly can. You're looking into the sky. Find where the edge of the track is and drive to it. And
well, that's right. And there's actually a curbing on the right-hand side at the very crest of 13, station 13,
Mhm.
which is the top of that first crest. But for a lot of people who are new to VIR, they don't realize that another third of the straight exists after the last point you can see coming out of Oak Tree.
That is also correct.
So they've only gone, they're only looking at 3,300 feet, and they got another 1,800 feet to go. And so the back straight is nearly a mile long at VIR, but it's also up and down. I think shift points are really critical, especially in a car like yours.
Oh, yeah. It's
So
killing me.
Basically, you're going downhill. So just to finish up Oak Tree, the exit of Oak Tree, everything is up. You're climbing all the way to the turn-in point for Oak Tree.
Okay.
When you turn in at Oak Tree, the road begins to fall. When you get to the apex of Oak Tree, the road not only falls quicker, but it also goes off camber. So this is one of the reasons why people have so much trouble with Oak Tree, because most of them turn in from the middle of the road. They never get full track left before whipping the car back to the right. And that is really important. So just like a mirror image of turn 3, where very few people get all the way to the right edge and the first half of the outside turn-in curbing and then turn in at the midpoint, most people are not getting far left to the very edge of the FIA curbing on the left side going into Oak Tree, and they're not driving deep enough before they whip it back to the right and make as straight a shot out of Oak Tree as they possibly can.
Guilty.
But that is, hey man, me too. I found myself, I was yelling at myself at the SVRA race 2 weeks ago because I was sandwiched between two Datsun 240Zs in my 1500cc Fiat X19. And I knew I was going to get blown off in the straight, but I just needed to get a better launch out to make it harder work for them, at least early in the back straight. I ended up beating both of them, so that was the most important thing. But the issue was on the back straight, you go down, 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 down. The South Course pit exit is the very lowest point on the back straight at VIR before the dip in the brake zone. If you are racing in the rain at VIR or driving in the rain at VIR, especially in a higher horsepower car, be aware that a river crosses that lowest section at the South Course pit exit. You nod and you laugh because I know you've been through it. It's treacherous.
Yep.
It is. But then you begin to climb fairly quickly. Then you have a little flat table. Then you climb again up to the crest. And then you go over the crest, and then there's another third of the straightaway to go. And you should, at this point, because of your sage advice of driving to the end of where you can see on the right side, you should be in the right half of the car on the right half side of the road, parallel with the right side. With smaller, lighter cars, even bigger, faster cars, the prevailing winds at VIR are from the west, which means you can, when you get up to the very highest point on the back straight, literally get a serious crosswind from the left-hand side. So leave a little bit of margin on the right-hand side of the road as you go over that crest, because you could very easily be displaced or moved to the right a couple of feet. I mean, I know big cars that have actually been blown a car width to the right on a breezy day. But then you go down into the valley at the end of the back straight, and the brake markers start at 5 there. The number 2 brake marker, when it is even with your right shoulder traveling track direction, is the very lowest point on the circuit. Lowest point on that brake zone. I'm sorry. Not the lowest point on the circuit, but the lowest point on the back straight, and the beginning of super concentrated braking going uphill where the car is smashed down into the road. You've got all that vertical compression that can make your braking as much as 20 to 25% more effective than it would be on a flat level surface. A lot of people, again, they're looking for a beginning of braking point, and I can tell you that even the very fastest cars can go further before they apply the brakes on the back straight than they do. So the whole idea would be to accelerate fully to hopefully at least the bottom of the dip, to the 2 mark. And, maybe a big, heavier street car that's unmodified, maybe a little bit earlier, like 3, and then walk it in.
But you have to be
smaller,
gentle,
lighter cars,
because just like turn 1, in the braking zone of turn 1 where there's the dip, if you're hard early and then you get the dip and it upsets the car, you're going to have a problem. Yeah. You need to be either one side or the other of the dip, in my opinion, when you start.
Well, that's right. And that's why I'm asking everybody to wait until the far side of the dip. Wait until the road begins to climb before you hit the brake.
Okay.
But that's really hard for people to do. They can't see the end of the braking zone. But I can tell your listeners that there is over 700 feet between that number 2 mark and the turn-in point. And if you can't get rid of 100 miles an hour in 700 feet, there's something wrong with your brakes.
Okay.
We have street cars that are capable of doing 60 to 0 in 120 feet. And the thing is that in my 3-ton Chevy Tahoe RST with its 6.2 liter engine and 420 millimeter front brakes, Brembo brakes, bigger than a McLaren 720, I can do 229s with 5 people in that thing. I can brake very effectively twice at the end of that back straight before the brakes say enough. But I've got plenty of room, and you have plenty of room, and every listener here has more room than they think they do at the end of the back straight. Now, there's some people that get concerned because they say, well, God, that compression up the hill is really good, and I'm really hard on the brakes and everything's slowing down, but I'm going to reach a point where the road levels out. And if I'm turning too much at that point, the car's going to become unstable. And that is a very valid, very real concern. So how you combat that is don't make a beeline for the left-hand side of the road when you decide to brake. Instead, arc the car in, draw a large, broad radius that ends up with the left side of the car parallel with the left side of the road after the left turn is done. And if you do that, what's happening is right when the road starts leveling out, you're unwinding the wheel because your left side of the car is parallel with the left side of the road and you're going straight. So the braking is better delivered. There's less lateral loading. It's much, much more nicer to the car and to you as the driver. But you have to end up left of center. There are a lot of people that cheat or come across to the right-hand side of the road for the entry of the last tight corner on the track, which is turn 14, the right-hander at the end of the braking zone at the end of the back straight. And that is another classic example of a again, tough to say this, but a sacrifice corner or a corner where you would give up something to get a better shot out of that right-hander through turn 15, which is a left-hander with a massive compression, leading on to a usable straight between 15 and 16. And you can tell stories too. I know you can about that section.
Well, yeah. So in the instructors always tell you, get parallel to the curbing on the right. You're going to come through, what number was that? 15. And you're going to go out 15. to the curbing, and then you're going to slow down, and then you're going to turn. That's the safe way, not the fast way. And when you abandon what your instructor told you, and they're doing it as self-preservation, and I totally get it, right? When you abandon that, that straightaway becomes very, very usable. Before, even in my little Honda, you're mashing the gas. You're really accelerating because it's downhill. It's you got all the momentum you want. If you also just keep going past the curbs, oh man, it really feels fast. So,
well, that's absolutely right. So the thing is that when you go, when you set turn 14 up at the end of the back straight, you're ending up on the left-hand side of the road. You're going to turn in from the high side of the corner to the right in through 14. You don't want to pick up the inside curbing until after the FIA curb begins. I'm trying to draw as many parallels with other corners as I can so that people only need to remember a few things. But then the right side of the car is parallel with the right side of the road, and you're on the right half of the road as you go downhill steeply and turn left into 15. And my friend, I had the most incredible race with a friend of mine, Mark Gobble, who runs a Spec Miata, an Elva Courier, and a stock car. Talk about schizophrenic. But he's a great driver. He's really a lot of fun. He's won a lot of races. But we had a ding-dong battle 2 weeks ago, and he blew it going into 14. And I watched him carry too much speed going into 14. I knew he was going to miss the apex. I knew it was going to wash him out to the left half of the road and compromise his entry and his launch onto that downhill straight. And I just paused for a second, knowing that he was going to be carried out and he was going to not be able to do anything at the track out of 15. And I set him up so well that I drove right by him in that short straightaway, exiting 15. And unlike the safe instructors, and I have to give it to the instructors, they're the ones sitting in the passenger seat. Yep. But the idea of 2 brake zones at the end of the back straight and 2 brake zones in the hog pen is not the best way. So what we do is we ask people, and I ask people in cars that are capable of doing 1 minute and 45 second laps around VIR, I am asking them to turn and brake into hog pen. Mm-hmm. So I'm asking them to turn and brake across the width of the road on a diagonal to the apex curbing of 16A, which is the left-hander. And then when their left shoulder is at the end of the curbing on the left-hander, to turn the car to the right under slight power and roll on. And when they do that, and they pick up the curbing on the right-hand side as the road really drops away into hog pen, then they can take one big, broad, open arc through 2 apicy corners and just haul the mail onto the front straight. Now, you asked me how many times I've done that turn in and at Oak Tree, right? And I would say, I would say more than I've done it a bunch. I would say this is the hardest direction change on the whole track to do consistently. The end of the left into hog pen and the beginning of the right through hog pen is absolutely, that's the one that I've done right maybe 3 times.
So
in my life.
When I when I was in HPDE in my rookie year and maybe even up until recently, I would drive through Hogpen and go, why are these people off the track on the left? How did they get there? Because even if you don't double brake, you're braking when you go left and go diagonally across to the right. If you over brake it, it becomes very easy. The car compresses, everything is hunky dory, you're full throttle. But if you try to minimize your braking, things get a little hairy. But it took me 4 years to go, why are all these people over there? The first couple of years, it's Miatas. They just hit each other, right? Okay, I could see it. We're all loaded up. They rubbed each other. They went off. But when you start to see single cars out there, I'm like, how did they do this? So I just kept, all right, maybe I'm just over slowing because the car feels way too good in there. So let me stop slowing so much. And it took me probably most of this year to finally get it to where I'm not. And now I realize that's how, because I believe even if you cut out one of the braking zones, you're probably still over slowing for Hogpen, especially if you feel comfortable. So
that's right. That's right. And it's funny because I do divide the corners at VIR up into fast and slower corners.
Mm-hmm.
So a slower corner would be a corner under 60 miles an hour.
Okay.
And a faster corner would be between 70 and 90 miles an hour. Mm-hmm. And so minimum speed. And a fast corners at VIR are turn 3, turn 5, turn 10, turn 11, and a fast direction change is this entry into Hogpen, the end of the left, beginning of the right. I mean, your wonderful little car can go quicker than a lot of cars through there because you have a comfort level and you know what you are trying to do and you are executing a plan. And I see minimum speeds even for, 100 treadwear molded radial vintage cars like mine. The minimum speeds are above 73, 74 miles an hour in Hogpen. And the minimum speeds at turn 3 are 69 miles an hour, 70 miles an hour. And the minimum speed at turn 10 is 90 miles an hour. But the problem is turn 1 is generally 48, 49 miles an hour, and I don't care if it is a Le Mans prototype. And turn 4A is generally 48 to 51 miles an hour, and I don't care what it is. And Oak Tree is generally 44 to 48 miles an hour. I don't know. I don't care what it is. I mean, the best I ever saw was a Benetton B191 driven by Larry Connor when he set the lap record at 136 in Michael Schumacher's 1994 Benetton. And his minimum speed at Oak Tree was 51. And his minimum speed at turn 1 was 51. And his minimum speed at 14 was 55, maybe.
Oh, wow.
So you got 4 corners. You got 1, 4A, 12, and 14, all within 5 to 7 miles an hour, and all under 55 miles an hour generally. Mm-hmm. And I think too many people try to go too fast in the slow stuff, and they're not going fast enough in the fast stuff. And that is the standard challenge that all drivers have. VIR has it in spades because there's just more corners.
Yeah, it's a story of my life. And what you mentioned was you named 11 as a fast corner and 12 as a slow corner. And this is what makes Oak Tree so challenging is you're got yaw in the car, you're wheeling the car, you're pedaling the car to get from a fast corner through one of the slowest corners onto one of the 2 fastest straightaways on the course. And I feel the pressure because I always get walked on the straightaway. So there's an immense amount of pressure as I turn into 11, that I must nail this. And you said it earlier that you need to be to the left side of the track. I don't care what your butt dyno feels because my butt dyno says middle of the track is faster. That's what it says. It feels fast. The motion of the car is fast, but that's because you've pinched it off enough that you're forcing the car to move in ways it doesn't like it. And it's not sustainable. If you want a fast way to cook your tires, do it that way, right? If you take the bigger arc, you're gentler on your tires because you're not making those motions to get it to pedal through as much. So
absolutely. Oak Tree is, we could have a whole podcast just on that corner because there's just so much that goes into it. The idea that the number one HPDE issue that I see is people retaining steering input too far past the apex, which means that they turned in from the middle of the road or turned in early. Mm-hmm. The fastest drivers get much more steering input much sooner from further left. Sooner, the car rotates, generates a greater slip angle in the back than it does in the front, and then they are opening the steering wheel by the time they reach the apex because the car is pointed further downstream at the exit. Now they can slide all four wheels across the width of the road to and over the exit curbing, but that is far better than turning the wheel more and having to delay the progression to wide open throttle sooner.
For sure.
That is really a tough thing to do and one of the great challenges of that track. But I'm looking for, in your car, 65 miles an hour apex speed at turn 11. And that takes some buildup of testicular fortitude.
Huevos,
to do that.
Yeah. So,
but
okay. So to wrap up a complete lap of VIR, when we're coming out of Hog Pen, we're going to be way track left. You'll know there's a little bit of curbing out there. You're going to be real close to it or right on top of it, just a little bit. Where should we be pointing the car? Because we're going back uphill and the track meets the horizon again. And I've seen guys dead center. I've seen them right of center, and I've seen them left of center.
So ideally, you should be going through the exit of Hog Pen fast enough so that the car is carried out fully track left. And that whole section is downhill. It doesn't feel like it in the car. It feels like it levels out before it does. But the lowest elevation on the circuit, which is 370 feet above sea level, highest being turn 14 and Oak Tree, are both at over just a trace over 500 feet above sea level. But the track out of Hog Pen is the midpoint of the thin concrete curbing on the left side.
Okay.
And if you are tracking out before that, and they have added red and yellow FIA curbing even before that on the track out curb at Hog Pen, you're doing something wrong. Mm-hmm. You're tracking out too soon. You're having to carry steering too long. You're not straight enough soon enough. Now, you raise a very good issue that I think a lot of people don't think enough about, is you will track out parallel with that curb. The left side of the road, for as far as you can see it, is straight, but the road is not over the crest. And what I use is I can't see the crest and I can't see the pit straight beyond that crest, but I can see the pit lane dividing paint, which is a huge V of yellow and green. And what I do is I look at the right-hand side of that, because the right-hand side of the road, the left-hand side of the pit lane dividing paint, to aim me and tell me that the road is going to turn right 20 degrees after that crest. And I want to stay left of center on the pit straight, on the entry of the pit straight until I crest. I want to stay left of center, and I want to stay left of center, at least the first third of the way down the pit straight. Yes, you can drive down the right half of the road and cut a little bit of length off the lap. But realistically, to turn the wheel less through the kink, to cut down on rolling resistance, I am going to move from the left to the right. So I want to stay left. You just don't want to be surprised and run out of road when you come up that hill from track out at Hogpen and realize the track goes right and you're going straight.
Okay. I'll give that a try. I'm a right of center guy, so I'll have to give it a try. And
well, I think that's fine as long as the car is finished turning.
Mm-hmm.
The goal is to finish turning, because if you have to add steering to get the car right at the beginning of that long straight, it will cost you in a low horsepower car.
Okay. Well,
I would urge you, if you could find, Tyler Kassira, Danny Stein, Jonathan Goring, any of the top level Spec Miata guys, Nick Bruni, to watch what they do, because they're masters. Also, the Spec Racer Ford Gen 3 cars,
mm-hmm.
Those drivers are masters at making sure that they don't add any more potential rolling resistance by trying to take a path that is not as straight as it can be.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good tip, because just because I have more horsepower than them doesn't mean I can't try to optimize like they are to see if it comes out with another tenth or a mile an hour or two. So that'll be important.
Well, it's funny. Everybody's always looking for 5 or 10 miles an hour. 1 more mile an hour, 2 more miles an hour at the exit of Hogpen to the brake zone is more than 0.6 of a second.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I believe it.
2 miles an hour on the length of the pit straight at VIR is 5/6. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's huge. I believe it. Well, that completes one lap, verbally one lap of VIR. Mr. Krause, where can people find you these days, since you sold your boat and you're racing and you're semi-unretired?
Well, I'm available through Peter at peterkrause.net or www.peterkrause.net or gofasternow.com.
Okay.
Has all my contact information. I have a YouTube channel, which is fun to watch. Lots of good things there. And I'm always at VIR or able to be gotten a hold of at most of the major events. And I love talking to all drivers who want to improve.
Well, I really appreciate your time. I think one of the big things people can take away from this is go look at yours and Ross's virtual track walk. It's on VIR and many other tracks at that, for that matter. But I think that'll help give you more visualizations, especially if you took notes today. And I think one of the biggest things you can do is, just because you hear it here or you see it online or you saw it on YouTube or wherever, is to physically walk the track, because then you get to apply what we've talked about, and then you'll see it through your own eyes and you'll have your own opinions and your own perception of it. And then that will help embed it in your memory when you're going at speed, because it's hard. Even looking at videos, I'm like, okay, I need to look at for that marker, or I need to do this. And then at speed, I don't think about that. But after I did physically track walked it, it was much easier for me to do. So
the light bulb popped on.
Yep.
Well, thank you very much for this opportunity. And again, thanks for the plug for speedsecrets.com's virtual track walks. Ross and I are in the process of developing V2 of the track walks, using shorter, quicker presentations, but including 50 and 60 page PDFs of the diagrams and the slides that we use, so that people have something that they can refer to as well. So we have 15 tracks up right now. We just redid Laguna Seca. We've got a couple more tracks that have been recently repaid: Road America, Mid-Ohio. in the works right now, and we expect to be able to freshen up the rest of them and add more very soon.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you spending all this time with me talking about Virginia International Raceway full course.
Until next time, keep working on yourself, keep working on the car, and let's get faster.